Senior Report thanks Edmund Besch of Bristol Burgess Insurance Agency, 65 East Main Street, Westfield, for his generous grant to provide news to seniors. Funding is provided by a grant from New York State Senator Catherine M. Young, representing Western New York's 57th District with a local office in Olean. Funding for Senior Report is provided in part by a grant from Andrew Goodell, Assemblyman for the 150th District of the New York State Assembly. Dave Cass and Rick Newell provide funding on behalf of the Lakeview Hotel and Restaurant at the Docks, located on Water Street near the lake in Mayville. Senior Report with Reed Powers thanks Westfield's Schultz Chevy for a generous grant to inform seniors of important news. Over 50 years of service to Westfield by Chevrolet, Schultz Chevy across from the school. The physicians of Jamestown Primary Care are happy to sponsor the Senior Report. From the Access Channel 5 television studio in Mayville, it's Senior Report with Reed Powers. Senior Report is broadcast live throughout northern Chautauqua County on Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. each week. Call in and share a thought, make a comment, ask a question, or simply wish someone a happy birthday on Chautauqua County's only live call-in senior program. Since 1995, Reed has been bringing viewers hundreds of interesting guests, informing the community on a variety of subjects. Here's the host of the show, Reed Powers.
And good morning. What a beautiful day we have here in Chautauqua County. A little bit of mist, but everything's fine. And we're going to have summer weather. It's going to be up around the 60s. Can you go wrong living in Chautauqua County? A beautiful place, the Garden of Eden of the United States, and also a free country where you can own a gun, hopefully. All the politicians pander to the public and to the nutcakes by saying whenever there's a gun incident, we have to have gun control. Well, we have 30,000 gun control laws on the books now. New York State has the toughest gun controls in the United States, and more gun killings in New York City. So give me a break here. Maybe what we need is mental health. You know, the state years ago did away with the mental hospitals, and a lot of the mental health situations said, we don't need that. We'll provide somehow. Well, they haven't. And when you get somebody who shows signs of mental problems, they should be picked up, they should be given help, they should be given whatever they need, therapy. That would stop a lot of this craziness. Not taking guns away from the law-abiding citizens. There's some quotes I want you to hear just for fun. Somebody sent me a quote supporting the right to keep and bear arms. This is you can look it up if you want them. There's a whole bunch of them. I'll just read a couple of them here. As you know, in the Constitution, our forefathers wrote, a well-regulated militia, meaning men, they insisted that every man have a gun, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, not even anything taken away. But of course, they've done away with the Second Amendment for the most part. And Benjamin Franklin's comment was, those who would give up essential liberties to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety, and you won't get it. This is craziness, you know. George Roman once said, I'm convinced we can do to guns what we've done to drugs, create a multi-billion-dollar underground market over which we have absolutely no control. Well, that's what's happened. As civil rulers, not having their duty to the people duly before them, may attempt to tyrannize, and as the military forces which must be occasionally raised to defend our country might pervert their power to the injury of their fellow citizens. The people are confirmed by the next article of the right to keep and bear arms. That's Trent Cox in remarks on the first part of the amendment. You know, the constitutional people who passed this, our forefathers who passed this amendment, said it very clearly, this is not for goose hunting or deer hunting. They pointed out that this was to prevent a government from taking over. Banning gun shows to reduce violent crime will work about as well as banning auto shows to reduce drunken driving. Bill McIntyre. I asked, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people except for a few public officials. George Mason. And the tank, the B-52, the fighter bomber, state-controlled police, and the military are the weapons of dictatorship. The rifle is a weapon of democracy. If guns are outlawed, only the government will have guns. Only the police, the secret police, the military, the hired servants of our rulers. Only the government and a few outlaws. I intend to be among the outlaws, Edward Abbey. History shows that all conquerors who have allowed their subjected people to carry arms have prepared their own fall. Adolf Hitler. Maintenance of the right to bear arms is the most essential one to every free people and shall not be whittled away and down by technical constructions. North Carolina Supreme Court. I got so many here I can't. I'm going to give you a couple more. Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as they are almost every kingdom in Europe. The supreme power of America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword, because the whole body of people are armed and constitute a force superior to any body of regular troops that can be, by any pretense, raised in the United States. In other words, you're pretty powerful. Noah Webster, I might add, said that. To disarm the people, the best and most effectual way to enslave them. George Mason. Gun control, the assumption that everyone is a potential criminal. Right. You know who said that? Van Gogh, believe it or not. All right, more here. Besides the advantage of being armed, which Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation, notwithstanding the military establishments in the several kingdoms of Europe, which are carried as far as public resources will bear, the governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. James Madison, one of the writers of this. And it goes on and on and on. If gun laws in fact work, the sponsors of this type of legislation should have no difficulty drawing upon long lists of examples of crime rates reduced by such legislation. They cannot do so after a century and a half of trying. That was Orrin Hatch, one of our famous senators, I might add. All right, a couple more. Here is Thomas Jefferson. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect themselves against tyranny in government. Thomas Jefferson. They're not kidding around. You know, last but not least, Jesus had something to say. Jesus Christ the Lord had something to say about bearing arms. This is in Luke chapter 22, verse 36. Jesus said to them, "But now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one." There you go. From Luke. And if they'd had guns, he would have said, make sure you get a gun. You know, the funny thing is, when these gun control, when the Second Amendment was passed, the only guns that existed were single-loaded, muzzle loaders that you had to each shot had to be packed in. You didn't have the automatics you have today. But almost all guns are automatics today, pistols. And most shotguns and a lot of your 30-30s and hunting guns and target guns are semi-automatic. Semi-automatic. Automatic, there's a lot of confusion. Automatic means it's a machine gun. You pull the trigger, keep shooting. Semi-automatic means you squeeze off each shot, but you can squeeze off a lot of shots pretty fast. And going from there, they're trying to take your guns away, guys. And this is Chautauqua County. Everyone up here in Chautauqua County is owned, most people, I should say. There are a few who haven't, who own more than one gun, or at least one gun, know how to shoot it, have been taught how to shoot it, have even gone through school in many cases so they can hunt, and have been raised with guns all their lives. and they have the right to protect themselves with a gun in their home. And they also have a right to defend themselves against any tyranny, according to the founders of the Constitution. All right, so here we go. I remember I was watching that silly Piers Morgan, who's dedicated week after week of his shows pushing for gun controls. He doesn't know what kind of controls, but some kind of gun controls. They want to take a clip, make a clip smaller. Believe me, it takes 3 seconds to change a clip anyway. Give me a break. And semi-automatic guns, whether it has a stock on it with a handle or not, it's still a semi-automatic gun. Most guns are semi-automatics, most rifles. A lot of them are anyway. So I don't know what they're talking about. I don't think they do either, but they're pandering to the public is all I can say. Morgan is a Brit. Over there they took all their guns away. But they aren't as hostile as we are in this country. Most of the gun deaths, incidentally, are drug-related. Pistols in cities where they blow each other away for a corner so they can sell their drugs and guns. Anybody has comment on that, you're welcome to call in and talk about it. We have with us a special guest, and he will be on in just a moment, but I have a public service announcement for you, and then we'll hear from Doc, who's got a lot to say, and he will remain mute on gun control.
It was really hard to learn that there was no cure. So we sought hospice care. The hospice people, they really helped. They made her feel comfortable. And they helped me and the girls, especially the girls. They're helping us get through this loss. Now, hospice people, they're good people. They're really good people.
Hey, there you go. We got the guy here who's going to talk a little bit about whatever he thinks is for good for you. And incidentally, he believes, just like most of us up here in Chautauqua County, you can't have too much money and you can't have too many guns. Doc!
Absolutely right, Reed. We were just commenting in what we call that, the other side of the studio, engineering room. I can never think of the name of that thing. Good morning, everyone. Well, as you know, I have gone on record. I have no problem with people owning guns, okay? But Reed, you really started a hornet's nest. As you all know, I manned the phone. 13 people called in demanding sword control.
Well, like Jesus Christ the Lord, our Holy Redeemer, you know?
I'm not going there. I'm just saying, you know, you started something, and there are people that there's going to be a collection of swords down at the local.
Well, they should actually they should confiscate all the knives in the country and make it illegal to have a knife.
Right, and I think the point you're making is let's not go overboard with all this. And we talked about that last week. It's
we had in his own country. We had Jack the Ripper. He knocked off a lot of people with a knife, right?
He sure did. Yes.
Okay, well, I just got a couple things to talk about today. First of all, over in Westfield, I just want to take a moment. It's a sad moment that we lost a great gentleman and what I would call an industry giant when we lost Steve Barron this past week. Well, John and I both are very familiar with the family. We were in Rotary with the Barrons and know them outside with the House Pool boards and things like this. But folks, you know, Steve Barron was one of these fellas, if you didn't know Steve, that was what we would call a gentle, quiet giant in the industry of grapes, the grape industry. He was considered an expert in the area, and he was called upon to go to different countries to assist, I think was, help me John, Israel, Egypt, and the Soviet Union, I think we were hearing. And just the fact that he was locally very instrumental with national growers. He was the president for many years. He was looked upon as the go-to person in this region on cultivating grapes and so forth. And that was just one side of him, but he just had so many sides. A very generous man, his wife Helen, both very active people in their communities. And so just a word of condolence to the family. And if you haven't heard that Steve passed away about a week ago yesterday, you know, send Helen and the family a little note. On a different note, from time to time I like to mention something that's going on in the community. And as you all know, we're broadcasting over into the Jamestown area now. Next Friday, something that I don't think has taken place in Chautauqua County in many years. And I got to admit, this is something a little new for me. My partner Bill Drello and I will be hosting, as you might have seen in the Post-Journal, at the Infinity, let's see, what do we call it? Infinity School or Infinity Program over on 3rd Street across from the Regina A Theater. We're going to sponsor a hootenanny. And my partner Bill had talked about this, and I kind of looked at him going like, okay, what's this got to do with music? But the whole thing is that we're going to invite anyone that has an instrument or has a ukulele or a banjo or violin, whatever, come on down. It's going to be next week, and I'll let you know again the hours next. Oh, no, it's going to be done by then. Well, anyways, it's in the evening. It's going to be in the Post-Journal. It's going to be noted again. I think it's from 6 to 8. And we're going to be singing songs from the folk era. If you have songs that you want other people to learn, bring the sheet music, and then we'll Xerox them right then and there. And it should be a really good time. It's free admission. We've already got a number of people coming. It should be a great time, and we hope this is going to be a series of events that will take place over the years. This is the time of year that we're kind of locked up in our homes, and it's kind of a quiet period. What a fun time would be to come out with your instruments and sing along with us. Back to you, Reed.
Hootenanny.
Hootenanny.
What's the date?
It's next Friday. It's at Infinity on 3rd Street across from the Regina A. It's the old Department of Motor Vehicles building. They turned it into a beautiful studio and classrooms, and it's this coming Friday, whatever that is.
What town?
Jamestown.
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 There you go, guys.
There you go. See you then.
Hootenanny.
Hootenanny.
That's an old term. It's a Chalk County term.
Oh, I know. I've heard of hootenanny. I know. I heard about it.
We have with us a wonderful guest, and I again I want to review what John has said. Steve Barron is one fantastic guy, and he did an awful lot. Served on many committees, did a lot of good work here, and a most exquisite grape farming. I mean, he knew everything there was, and he invented things for grape farming. And his wonderful wife, Helen Barron, who's been very active also, especially with the hospital and various other things. A real estate broker, fantastic, does a wonderful job. She sold me my house, and I tell you, she did a fabulous job because there were some complications which she took care of for me. Didn't have to, but she did. John.
Yes, sir.
How long you lived in Westfield?
Well, I think it's coming up to about 33 years now.
Holy mackerel. You're almost...
I'm not quite a local, but I mean, I'm getting there.
You're almost a local.
Almost. I'm not quite sure when that point is when you become a local.
Well, I saw somebody, an obit in the newspaper in the Republican, I think it was years ago, and it said, so-and-so, although having lived in Westfield for 42 years, is actually a native of Ripley.
Yeah.
So at any rate, John, you're not native born. I can tell by your accent. You're probably born somewhere else. Where were you born?
I was born in England, probably nearest large city, Manchester, the north of England. Yeah.
And what did you do in England? You went to school?
Well, yeah, I went to school. I kind of came up through the way it was in England in those days. You go to school. Then I went into an apprentice program with a company called Holroyd's at that time. It was eventually bought by Reynolds. I went to night school, went to released to day school once a week, and actually finished up getting it wasn't exactly an engineering degree, but I became what they call a chartered engineer in England, which is kind of equivalent to a PE there. So yeah, I was in England till I was 40, and then I must have had some kind of midlife crisis or whatever you might call it. I decided there was a better life somewhere else for me, and we picked up the family and we moved to Westfield, New York.
Is the law still looking for you over in England?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I could tell you a funny story about that if you've got a minute.
I have plenty. We got 41 minutes.
Okay. Well, the funny story was that when I was in England, there was a serial killer on the loose in Bradford, where I was working, Bradford in Yorkshire, and he was named Jack the Ripper, right? Mm-hmm. And it was about the time I was thinking of coming to the States, and people said, "Well, what's your initials, John?" And I said, "Well, it's JTR." "Oh, JTR, Jack the Ripper." No wonder you're moving to the United States. So anyway, that was a funny little
Yeah, it's funny. I brought up Jack the Ripper earlier.
Yes, I know you did, and that's what reminded me.
It's not as though the English don't have their own bad guys out there.
They do.
They used to.
That was sure. Yeah.
He was a royal, though. They said ultimately that he was protected by the royal family.
The one that you were talking about is the original Jack Ripper that was back in the probably 1800s.
Right.
But they also then had almost like a copycat in the 1980s, 70s, 80s.
That's
and
right.
So JTR did. I stopped using my initial JTR after that.
And you came over here. What did you come over here for specifically?
Well, I came with. I actually wanted to make the move. It was a personal choice, but I was lucky enough that Reynolds, the company I was working for in England, had a branch here in Westfield, New York, which was the old Ajax flexible coupling company that they purchased back in the 70s. So it gave me an opportunity to feel secure within the Reynolds Group, and I could move here and became an engineer down at Reynolds initially.
Well, you ultimately you ran it, didn't you?
No, I didn't run it. Some people said I ran it, but I didn't. No, I finished up as vice president of sales and marketing,
which is pretty potent. That's probably the second most important position there.
Well, yeah, it had its share of issue. But, yeah.
Well, I still remember Ajax when I was a kid, and it was right across from Welch's. They had a building over there where they were doing things.
Right, that was the old Hungerford mansion, I believe, which is now boarded up. It's still there.
Yeah.
But that's where Ajax started, and then they moved down to Bourne Street and built the facility.
A modern facility, yeah. Well, they had Ajax flexible coupling. That was all one word almost. What did that mean? What was that about? They apparently had a patent on something pretty good.
Yeah, without getting into a lot of technical issues, the flexible coupling was a coupling that was primarily developed by Ajax, which was what they call a gear-type coupling, a coupling that couples a motor, usually, to a gearbox or some other piece of equipment. And that coupling allows the transmission of power and speed, and also gives flexibility in that if the shafts are misaligned, it covers for that misalignment. Kind of technical, but that's really the flexible coupling part.
And they still make them, right?
Oh yes, I mean they're one of the world's leaders in that area.
If you have a train, you have to have one, right?
Well, I was if you were, they'd sell a lot to GE for transmission, but one of my major roles was before I retired was to help develop the mass transit industry for Reynolds, and we were very fortunate to get some very nice orders, and they still do, from New York subway, for example. So many of the subway cars that are in New York are actually riding on Reynolds couplings and Reynolds gearboxes now. We developed to also produce the gearbox.
So it's very important.
Pardon?
It's one of the top jobs in Westfield, New York, right?
Oh, at Reynolds, yeah. I think they employ currently now about 115 people. Right. They do a lot of international business, most countries in the world, and supplying couplings into steel mills and, as I say, subway cars, trains, wherever two shafts need to be coupled together to transmit power. Reynolds are in many of those.
They almost need one, huh?
Yeah.
Very good business. Okay, now you have been, since you retired, and when did you retire?
Well, I retired from Reynolds in 2004, and I spent about a year, playing golf and putzing around, and decided after a year, this full-time retirement doesn't work for me very well. So I was very fortunate at that time that they were looking for somebody part-time to help economic development in Westfield, both the town and the village, support that group. And you had me on here about a year ago in that role. And I did that. I told them I would help them out for about a year to get them back on the feet. Turns out 6 years later, I was still there.
Are they on their feet?
Well, they're on their feet now. I was replaced by a young local resident, Aaron Resnick, who is doing a great job. I had to admit it, but a little bit more energy than I have at my age, and he's really jumped in, and we're lucky to have in Westfield a development agency, somebody who's really going out there looking to bring business into Westfield. And there are a couple of things that we have on the books at the moment that I think are going to be very, very beneficial to Westfield.
Well, something's coming in down where the old fire hall was on Bourne
Well, that's
Street.
correct. Yeah, I mean, it's not really confidential. There's two ladies from Northeast Pennsylvania who want to buy the exempt hall.
Yes.
And the firemen, I think, are happy to sell it.
Right. We already voted to sell it if they want it.
Yes,
They're dickering a little bit now.
So that's in negotiation still. There's some issues. The IDA has been very helpful in helping the ladies with some incentives. The Empire State Development has also helped out, and they're now working with the banks for some financing. So all being well, that will come to fruition, and we will have a business on Bourne Street that hopefully they'll initially, probably employ 5-10 people, and could, if the business grows, get up to about 50 people.
Okay, now what do they do? What's their business? I remember
Well, it's a kind of an unusual product that they have, and they've got experience from their previous jobs. They're going to specialize in making pierogies.
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 Those little potato things?
Little potato things.
Yeah.
I believe they're Polish origin. And they've got experience in this. They know what equipment they need. They're very, very well put together in terms of the business plan, and I'm looking forward to that being a working environment again.
Let's hope so. That'll be a awakening in Westfield, because again, it's a new business. That's what we need.
That's what we need. And so that's what the Development Corporation, that's one of the issues that they're working with. Yeah.
Okay, well, the reason we're talking about the development associations or corporation is that every little village up here needs one. We're a tiny village.
Yeah.
And they need something to push and probe and search and find and
exactly.
bring business in. You're not going to get a GM, you know that, but or hopefully we won't get a container board.
Well,
I remember that fiasco.
That's a very sore point.
that was a while back.
And it's still, it's a long time ago, but it's still brought up.
It's still people. There. Everybody who's an old timer remembers the container board fight.
But we are fortunate. The village and town support that kind of organization, because if you look at our neighbors, and Ripley and Brockton, they don't have that kind of organization.
And they're really in bad shape financially.
They're struggling, and I think one of the reasons Westfield have held in after Welsh's pulled out of our community is that we do have government that is very pro economic development and give it the support. So I'm pleased to be. I was pleased to be part of that, but that's come to an end now.
Okay, now enter Barcelona. Now, what about Barcelona? Barcelona was very famous, more famous than Westfield by a mile.
Got a lot of history.
But back when Westfield was named Crossroads, we were definitely Crossroads, because there was a way to get from Chicago to Louisiana, if you came through Westfield.
Right. Yeah.
They had to come into the Barcelona harbor, and they built a huge pier out there. You can still see remains of it. It was stone. It was a fifth of a mile out, protected, and they unloaded cargoes, massive cargoes that had come from down the other lakes, would have traveled down. And the simple reason was they would put those cargoes on a mule cart and take them up over the hill. The so-called Portage Trail.
Right, I know.
And it was just a short run, and they could have them on Chautauqua Lake. They built rafts up there, and ships if they needed them, but mostly big rafts. Put all their cargoes on it. All they had to do was sail down to the end of, drift down to the end of Chautauqua. And back then, there was a big river that exited from Chautauqua Lake. That river, they'd go down, and it would enter into the Ohio River. And then they'd follow the Ohio River to the Mississippi, and they could go down the Mississippi to New Orleans, to the West Coast, wherever they wanted to go. And that's why it was so important. And they had a huge amount of cargo that came through here. Barcelona's still there.
Still there, and it's a different environment, of course, now. It's not very much in terms of that kind of business, but certainly we have really a jewel there in Barcelona, I think, and more from a tourist point of view. I think there's a lot of potential there. There's some infrastructure problems, as you probably know. The town is working on a grant to get a new water supply to Barcelona. We've got to get those infrastructure issues solved, and then I think there is more of an opportunity to actually bring more tourism-type businesses.
Okay, we'll chat about that. We got a couple of calls. You want to take a call?
Sure.
Okay, good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting, and you're on the air.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. It is a beautiful day. Enjoy it, because I guess we only have about one more of these, and then it's going to deteriorate into what we're normally supposed to have in this area at this time of the year. I'm
anxiously awaiting that. I have a duck. And back when I was a kid, you hung your duck until it fell off on its own just about. But it's in the winter, it's wonderful because you just hang it outside and you don't have to put it in your refrigerator. And it drips dry. It becomes very dry.
Okay.
Then you slash up the fatty breasts and you bake it for 4 hours, turning it every hour. And oh, what a treat. But it became so warm today, I had to take my duck down and put it in the refrigerator. But tomorrow, hopefully, it'll be back down in the low 40s. I'll be able to hang the duck again.
It's a good job you've got a refrigerator.
I think you're going to have to wait till the next day for that. But anyhow, I do have a question for your guest.
Sure thing.
Now, as the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Westfield, what exactly does the Chamber do for, people that are like retired and things like that? Because I understand that, when you're still in business and so forth.
Yeah.
But now that a lot of
they can teach them golf. John played golf for a long time when he retired.
Yeah. As far as what does the Chamber do for retired people, really, the Chamber supports businesses.
Right.
And of course, if you're retired, first of all, you want to have good, viable local businesses in Westfield-Barcelona area that you can go to and get the products that you need.
And they will keep your children and your grandchildren here.
Yeah, and so a vibrant business district, a vibrant commercial area is important to everybody. Not only the businesses that are there and are getting their income from that, but it's important to the seniors too. The fact that you don't necessarily have to get in your car and drive an hour to a mile or to Buffalo or to Fredonia. That we have a viable business in Westfield that you can go to. So I would put that number one as what it does for seniors. It creates a viable downtown, hopefully, business district.
And especially as you're getting older, I'm not speaking for all seniors, but for myself, I no longer care to drive when the weather isn't nice, and it's nice to have places within a very short, I'll drive around the village, but within a short distance rather than having to drive 15, 20 miles to get anywhere that
exactly.
in weather that is not dependable. I mean, when I start out, it might be all right, but by the time I get done doing my shopping and stuff like that, when I come out of the stores, it might have deteriorated and so forth. So I keep my eye pretty close on the weather and try to shop locally because there's a lot of things available locally. And even if they cost a wee bit more, which sometimes they do, than going to the big discount places and so forth, if you consider how much it's costing you to drive your car to get there and to come back and so forth, you're actually saving money.
Yeah, and really I think what has helped local businesses, and nobody wants to see the gas prices increasing, but in fact the side effect of that is that people think twice now about getting in the car and driving for 15, 20 miles to make a small purchase.
Absolutely.
So I think that
excuse me.
Yeah. So I think that the better environment we can get in Westfield and Barcelona for local businesses, that helps everybody. And the Chamber has a program which they promote and has done extremely well, which they call Shop Tarqua, where it enables you to get gift certificates for people that are only usable with Chamber members. So that drives you know, you might get a $100 gift certificate from a friend or a relative at Christmas. It's a shop talk gift certificate.
Now, how would somebody go about finding out what businesses, et cetera, are chamber affiliated within your own village or within the county?
Right. There is a flyer, a brochure, but I'm sure if you go on to chautauquachamber.org, you'll be able to find those affiliations on there. They're available on the website. And so there are Chautauqua members, chamber members who actually are in that program. And
now, are there other ways? Because although I use my computer quite a bit, I do have friends that have never become comfortable using a computer. In fact, the one friend doesn't even, she gave it back to her children that had given it to her because she didn't like it and couldn't get used to it. So she doesn't, if she needs anything, she almost has to ask somebody anymore because so much is computerized. But is there a list that you could send for that is not on a, you know, you don't have to go to a computer?
A list of what? I'm sorry, I didn't.
The places in the county that are chamber associated.
Sure. Most of that information can be found, you know, on the chamber website, chautauquachamber.org. You know, nowadays paper is almost becoming obsolete, and most of the things you can sit in your living room or your office or whatever at home and go and find the information on a website on the internet. So if you go to that website, you can find your way through and actually find most of the information you're looking for. On the other hand, if you we do have a location in Westfield at Seacrest Law Offices where we keep all the brochures for the
what address is that at?
And so you can go in
Right across from the park.
right across from Fairpoints, or across from the park
On Main Street.
Seacrest Law Offices is our kind of location for materials that you're looking for. If you go in there, there's a rack that would give you with all the information in. I think also the Village Hall has information on the chamber. It's my job to make sure that information is up to date and so on. So that's a location you can go to in Westfield.
Yeah, and also Barcelona, they had all that information down there.
They have it down in Barcelona. The businesses down there, and of course during the summer the visitors booth is open.
Right.
So there are a number of locations you go to can get the information in paper form.
Okay, thank you. That was most helpful.
Thank you very much, caller. We have another call, so we'll say goodbye to you and send me a stamped self-addressed envelope. I'll give you $5 off at that beautiful little restaurant down at the foot of the hill, the Lakeview. Okay, caller, you're on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I had an idea, and I would like it if you'd address it, please.
Sure. You're talking to John, I'm sure.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
I don't have any ideas.
All right.
Because there are things that we cannot get locally, and stores like IKEA are very popular. Would it be a good idea, and tell me if not and why not, to try to encourage one to come in? Now, the closest one I know of is in I can't think of the name.
Well, nearby.
Down south, anyway.
Yeah.
And the one that was up around Buffalo is gone. I'm trying to think of Pittsburgh. And people would come in from quite a ways around to get furniture and things like that we can't buy locally. And they would also come up into our villages and go to our restaurants and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, that kind of issue fell into my old job with the Westfield Development Corporation. We kind of differentiate ourselves a little bit in the two functions. Westfield Development Corporation is really, their main role is to attract new businesses, hence the pierogi business that I was talking to you about. The Chamber's role primarily is to help existing businesses flourish and grow. not that I'm diverting the question, because I think it's a very, very good question.
Well, Better Bake, they added on.
Yeah,
Better Bake Foods, among others.
Yes, but one of the issues, and the IKEA is one suggestion. When I was doing the Westfield Development Corporation job, I looked at many of those things. It's not as easy to get businesses to come into New York State, unfortunately.
Well, they said again, we're fighting the taxes.
Taxes.
Crazy taxes.
And actually, that's where the Chamber can help. One of the Chamber's role is advocacy for various issues such as that, and they're really, really pushing hard to reduce taxes in Chautauqua County, and that's
which is incidentally
role.
the highest tax county in New York.
It is, and so that is a Chamber role. But coming back to your point, I think that these people can be approached. We've certainly got the land down by the Thruway, and over the time I was working in the Westfield Development Corporation, there were people looking at locating down by the Thruway on what we've designated as an industrial park off Bourne Street. But when it came down to it, the competition is so severe from other states that it's very, very difficult to attract people into the village.
It must be almost impossible when you stated the tax situation.
Yeah.
You give them local tax breaks.
Yeah, certainly. Well, the IDA gives them tax breaks, and I've got to say that I am seeing some light at the end of the tunnel with regard to New York State. This year, we were able to achieve for Westfield what we call a Main Street grant. And certain businesses on Main Street in Westfield applied for the grant, and after applying for it for 4 years, we finally secured
Kathy Young helped out on that, didn't
yes, she did. But it was really the village and the town and the Development Corporation that pushed hard. We pushed for 3 years, and finally we got a grant. The point I'm making there is that I think New York State maybe are seeing the light a little bit in terms of the need to give incentives to businesses to come into New York State.
Basically, to reduce taxes. It reminds me of the lady who sends her husband down out to the doctor and down to the pharmacy and says, get a pill so you can get an erection. And so he comes back with the pills. He says, here, these are diet pills. That'll help.
Well, we won't go there. We won't go there.
Incidentally, he's looking for another place to stay right now.
All right, but I do appreciate what you're saying, and those efforts are being made, but it's not easy. I feel this victory, we can make it a victory with the pierogi manufacturer. Is really a good.
It's no small potatoes.
It's a really good step forward. But I'll pass the suggestion on to Aaron Resnick in the Westfield Development Corporation. And
what is ICANN? I don't even know.
IKEA is I think a Swedish furniture maker. Very different kind of furniture.
Yeah, well, the last furniture maker was one over in Mayville. What was that outfit? They closed down the plant.
Ethan Allen.
Ethan Allen. And last heard they are on a ship, which they renovated, a huge old ship, and they just do all the furniture on that. Every once in a while they stop off in China and pick up some...
They're very good, high quality.
Well, they pick up a few coolies in China and feed them some rice and run around, and they make the furniture very cheap.
All right. Was there anything else did you need to ask me more on that subject? Is the lady still on?
She's gone.
She's gone. Okay.
She fell asleep.
She probably, one of the things, Reed, I do tend to go on a little bit when I get on the subject.
Okay. Well, see, that's what I'm here for. I break you up.
Yeah.
And I tell you, don't throw those away. They're $5 bills.
No, Lakeview. I know Lakeview. I used the last ones you gave me.
Oh, great. Okay, we're with John Rawlinson. He is the head of the Chamber of Commerce for Westfield and now Barcelona, right?
Well, we like to ensure that it's a Westfield-Barcelona local chamber, because Barcelona have some really nice businesses down there that need some help.
Is Barcelona a separate entity from Westfield? What is it?
No, it's not a separate. I mean, it comes under the same...
It's Westfield, right?
It's really Westfield, but the people who live in Barcelona have a certain amount of pride in their small community, and they like to get some recognition.
Yeah, well, it was a big fishing community, too. They had 10 ships going out of there every day. bringing in tons and tons of pike and perch and so forth. And one of the famous guys ran the harbor area, Pike Monroe. I remember Pike very well. And did he know how to smoke a fish? I used to have parties all the time, and I have him send down some fish for me down to Long Island. And the word goes, I don't know if this is true or not, but his kids, when he passed away, took his cremains when they were building the lighthouse out at the pier in Westfield, and they planted the cremains down in the hole where they were building it, and he now lives
where he rests?
Behind the lighthouse, underneath the lighthouses.
Oh yes, right.
Not lighthouses, but the big lights.
Yeah.
The right, left lights, green, red. Caller, you're on.
Hi, I would like to know from Ripley to Brockton, all those new fire hydrants they have there, are they planning on building a house project, or what are they planning on?
New fire hydrants were?
From Ripley down to Brockton, it's all new fire hydrants on Route 5.
Yeah, I know that project. It's actually a project that I'm actually on the Westfield Department of Public Works, so I get to know what's going on in the public works arena. And that is a project, I believe, from Ripley. They're moving they have put a water line in from Ripley that goes about as far as the golf course.
In Dunkirk?
No, the golf course on Route 5.
In Westfield.
Yeah, in Westfield. But it's not a Westfield project, that's a Ripley project. Water has also been brought in from the west side, I believe. Well, you're saying Ripley, I'm sorry. But also it was coming in from Brockton too. It's coming in from the east side, coming in from the west side. It stops at Shorewood, I believe, on the west side, does that water supply. And that's why the fire hydrants, they're in those water lines, which they have not been joined up yet. It'd be nice if they were, so that we had water the whole length coming through Barcelona.
Well, the water lines down in Barcelona are a tragedy, they say. They're leaking like crazy.
Yeah, and the town has actually applied for a grant, which is looking, I think, reasonably good, to actually refurbish those water lines, which is a very important infrastructure.
And a very expensive project. And
very expensive.
It's endemic up in this area. We have to replace our water lines.
Yeah, well, I think infrastructure in our small communities is a problem nationwide, quite honestly. Yeah. So that's the reason for the fire hydrants. They're part of a water line project coming in from the west, from Ripley, and there's one same thing coming in from the east, from Brockton.
There you go, caller. Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot for calling. Send me a stamped self-addressed envelope. I'll send you some $5 off at the Lakeview. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's also, there's another restaurant there too. Right next door, they have two. One specializes in fish, and the other one is all the crab you can eat on my
What are you talking about?
down by the Lakeview in Mayville, the foot of the hill, Mayville.
Yeah.
And they have a hotel. If you get overindulged, you can just spend the night there, no problem.
There you go.
John Rawlinson, head of the Barcelona Westfield Chamber of Commerce, talking about things in general, which apply, incidentally, to every little village, town, city in Chautauqua County. Anybody could do these things and should be doing them. It should be, as he says, it ain't an easy job bringing people into New York when everybody's beating beating out of New York as fast as they can run. But the taxes may adjust a little bit, and you can give tax incentives locally anyway, which helps out a little bit. And you can put in a pierogi factory. That's no small potatoes.
Let me just mention the small towns and the chambers just a minute. The chamber is just, the county chamber is just restructured to a certain extent, where there are people like me, what we call local coordinators in each community. In Mayville, in Fredonia, in Dunkirk, in Hanover, and in Westfield. And there are people like me working part-time now as local chamber coordinators that are under the umbrella of the county chamber, and they provide a really good service in those communities. Now, Westfield, unfortunately, the activity in Westfield has been down for the last year, and hence that's why the chamber asked me to come on board to try and re-energize it. I had my first board meeting the local Westfield-Barcelona chamber this week, and it was very encouraging that chamber members actually want to see things happening, and they have joined the. Well, I've got about 12 members of the local board. We're now looking for a president, and that's something that I'm working on. But I think we're going to see a lot more activity this year from the local chamber. So there are chamber members in each community.
All over the place, huh? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good, because we do have to spread the word, and we have to all coordinate our efforts here.
Right.
It's becoming very hard to bring somebody into the area, so you must be working together. Caller, you're on. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a question for your guest.
Sure, shoot.
Mr. Rawlinson, you said you're from England, and I was wondering, as you look back to Europe and the Isles, are there any examples or templates that are happening now, like for instance Germany, that we can learn lessons from as far as our economy, whether it's local or national?
I think I got that. I'm not quite hearing everything, but you're saying, do I see anything in when I've been traveling to Europe that would stand out as being something that they do that we don't do here in the States?
Precisely. In other words, you hear always about the Germans, that they're doing really well, and they're sort of like the poster child and so forth. Is there anything that we can take locally from what they're doing there?
Well, there's nothing really stands out in my mind. Their economies are suffering. Well, you know what the European economy is like, and actually, I believe that the United States has done a better job than what they've done in Europe to date to avoid us really going into a deeper recession than what we actually got. But as far as things that they do in Europe that would stand out as being different or could be applied here that isn't applied here, I'm struggling with that one. I can't quite off the cuff come up with anything.
Well, any part of the world, like China, Brazil, Argentina, Africa, any other part of the world that's doing something right that we could be doing?
Yeah, well, of course, China's a state-run country, and what they have in China, I don't think we necessarily want here, but what they do have, and which gives them a lot of advantages. A lot of the Chinese countries are controlled by the government, hence the recent rejection by the states of one of the Chinese conglomerates that wanted to get into our cell phone business, and the states turned them down because they felt it would affect our security. But so they benefit from government control in terms of financing. It's not the way we do things in the States, and of course it does give many of their companies advantage because they've got the vast wealth of the Chinese nation behind them.
Yeah, they have a lot of our money because of the balance of trade,
right,
which just incidentally went down again. We spent more money overseas than we got in. It's $50 billion, almost, or trillion or something.
But I do see a change coming there. I do see, I mean, Apple have just announced that they're going to bring some manufacturing of some of their products back into the States. And as the Chinese, their standard of living increases, the salaries increases, the labor costs in China are going to increase and are increasing, which is giving more incentive for USA manufacturers to actually start manufacturing the product back in the States. The transportation costs are a big saving to them too. So I think, I don't know whether I'll see it. I think it's a long time coming, but we're on the path where I do see maybe a change taking place there, and we can bring some manufacturing back to the United States.
So it sounds like it's come back full circle then.
What was that, Jim?
Coming back full circle?
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I think it bodes well for the states in that obviously we have the best talent, we have the best minds, we have a lot of things going for us, but unfortunately our costs were not in line with the global marketplace. That's changing, and I'm very pleased to see it.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Well, thank you, caller. Yeah, I just noticed the headlines today is that I guess it's 1 in 3 workers doesn't even get sick days anymore in this country. So they're cutting back sharply on benefits and money.
Yeah. Well, change is taking place, and it's tough. I mean, you know, you've seen where the auto industry has come to from where it was, and it's been quite a good success story. But unfortunately, a lot of sacrifice had to be made to get there. A lot of the unions had to sacrifice certain things, but lo and behold, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler in particular are doing extremely well now against very tough overseas competition. So, you know, all is not doom and gloom.
Good. It's nice to see something working well, because we've gone through a period of real hardship, I think, and it's not over. I'm sad to say. I predict. Incidentally, I wanted to mention to seniors, speaking of hardship, who are incidentally getting 50 cents on a dollar from what they got with their Social Security because they don't give a fair COLA. The COLA that you got this year for 2013 is completely taken away more than it for your costs for your Medicare. And so seniors, again, will have less money to live on than ever before on their Social Security. And it's no wonder they better learn to eat cat food, because they did during the Depression, you know. And it's edible, it's healthy, but it's.
Well, I'm not at that stage yet.
Well, you're not living in your kid's house, basement either, probably.
No, I'm not. No,
that's what's happening shortly with everybody. Okay, before we go, thank you, John, for being with us. I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to close off. It's your time.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is my third job. I've been retired twice now. I find it very difficult to just sit at home and do nothing. So I'm really encouraged by what is going on in Chautauqua County and what the Chamber is doing. It's a great organization. I think they're providing very useful things. Chautauqua health insurance, which is very important now. The Chamber's got a program where they can help you with health insurance. So I'm very happy to be where I am at the moment.
Well, thank you, John, and I appreciate you giving your time. This is volunteer. You're not paid for this.
Well, I get a small stipend,
yeah,
but
right,
it's primary. It's not.
You're lucky if it covers your gas.
Right.
Money. I want to leave you with one last quote about gun control. This is Patrick Henry a few years back. He says, Are we last brought to such humiliating and debasing degradation that we cannot be trusted with arms for our own defense? Where is the difference between having our arms in possession and under our direction and having them under the management of Congress? It is our defense. If our defense be the real object of having these arms, in whose hands can they be trusted with more propriety or equal safety as to our own hands? Ladies and gentlemen, don't let them take your guns. And they'll try. They've pretty much taken them away anyway. You know, you can't even have a machine gun anymore, you know, or a bazooka.
I don't need one.
Okay, guys, thanks for listening. I want to thank all those people that have called in. Sorry, the last caller, we didn't get you in, but we'll get you next time. You come back next year, maybe. Huh?
I'll be glad to.
Okay.
Be glad to.
I want to thank some special people who made this program possible. Chuck Kelsey, Devin Taylor, Chris Burt, Randy Burt, Chris Ramaker, Jeff Zook, Don Zenz, and John Hamels, last but not least, Doc Hamels. May all that is beautiful out there live with you. May all that is proud and true and noble abide with you. I'm Reed Powers.